It was a typical Thursday afternoon when I wrapped up my last client meeting at the downtown law firm. The sun was starting to set outside, casting a warm glow across the office building's glass windows. I'd spent the entire day negotiating a tough contract, and I was looking forward to a quiet evening. Just as I was about to shut my laptop, my phone buzzed. I glanced at the unfamiliar number on the screen, feeling a slight unease. It was from a local bank. I hesitated for a moment before answering. Hello? Hi, is this Lily Matthews? A calm male voice asked. Yes, speaking, I replied, still trying to place the call. This is Mark Davidson from Crestwood Bank. I'm calling to verify some information related to a mortgage you co-signed for a property on Willow Street. Willow Street. I didn't own property on Willow Street. I didn't even know anyone who did. You must have the wrong person, I said, trying to remain calm. I've never signed anything related to that address. I understand your surprise, Mark continued, his tone shifting slightly, as though he was trying to explain something more serious. But your name, Lily Matthews, is listed as a co-signer on a mortgage application with the primary applicant, your brother James Matthews. I felt my stomach drop. James? My younger brother? I clenched the phone tighter. That's impossible. I haven't signed anything for James. Are you sure you have the right person? There was a pause on the other end of the line before Mark continued. I understand your confusion. The loan was approved over 6 months ago, and all documents carry your signature. Your mother and father brought the paperwork to our branch themselves. I froze, the world around me blurring. My mind raced through memories, awkward family gatherings, strained silences whenever James talked about his new house, my parents asking me to sign some forms during a holiday dinner. But I had signed nothing. I was sure of it. I found my voice again. I need a copy of all the documents immediately. I'll send them to your email in the next few minutes, Mark replied, but then he added, there's another issue. The payments are over 2 months overdue, and the current balance is about $22,000. I could feel the blood draining from my face. I couldn't even process what he was saying. The call ended, but my hands were shaking. I immediately dialed my best friend, Sophie. She was the only person I could turn to in times like this. She worked as a criminal defense attorney, and she was the only one who wouldn't laugh at me for believing something this crazy. Sophie, I need your help. Something's wrong, I blurted when she answered. Hey, slow down. What's going on? She asked, instantly concerned. I think my family's been using my identity to take out loans, I said, my voice trembling. They've been forging my signature. Sophie didn't hesitate. I'll be there in 15 minutes. When Sophie arrived, I had already received the email from the bank. We opened the attached PDF together, and as soon as the document loaded, I saw it the forged signature on the mortgage application. It didn't just resemble my handwriting, it was almost an exact match, down to the small flourish on the L in Lily. The resemblance to my mother's handwriting was uncanny. Sophie didn't need to say anything. Her face said it all. This is bad, Lily, she said quietly, looking up at me. You've got a case of identity theft on your hands. Just as I was about to respond, my phone buzzed again. It was my mom. I passed the phone to Sophie, who gestured for me to stay calm. Hello? Sophie answered, her voice steady. Lily? Sweetheart, are you okay? My mother's voice came through, frantic. Mom, I need to ask you something important, Sophie replied. Why is Lily's name on a mortgage application for a property James bought? There was a long silence on the other end, and I could hear the slight tremor in my mother's voice when she spoke again. I was going to tell her, my mother said, her words coming out strained. James needed help with the down payment, and Lily was doing so well with her career. We thought it was just a little favor. A favor? Sophie echoed, her voice hardening. Your daughter is now tied to a loan for a property she never agreed to, and you've been forging her signature? Please, Sophie, you don't understand, my mom said, her voice growing desperate. Lily's been successful, and James just needed a little push. We didn't think it would get this far. I grabbed the phone from Sophie, unable to contain myself any longer. You used me as a pawn to cover your mistakes. You forged my signature, and now I'm stuck with your debt. I'll need to see every document you've signed in my name. And you better hope I don't have to press charges for fraud. My mom's voice trembled. Lily, please, don't do this. We're family. We were just trying to help. I cut her off. Helping each other? Or just using me for your problems? Sophie stood beside me, her hand on my shoulder. You need to contact the credit bureaus immediately and freeze all your accounts. We're filing a fraud report tomorrow. This goes beyond a simple loan, Lily. They've opened multiple accounts in your name. The room felt suffocating as Sophie continued to explain the next steps: contacting the credit bureaus, filing fraud reports with every financial institution, and possibly involving law enforcement. My heart raced as I stared at the documents in front of me, knowing that I had just uncovered the tip of the iceberg. The next day, I sat with Sophie as we went through the mountain of evidence she had gathered. She had dug into my financial history, pulling up everything from credit card accounts to personal loans I didn't know existed. It wasn't just one mortgage, there were personal loans, investment accounts, and even fraudulent business deals made in my name. My credit score had taken a nosedive, and I was drowning in debt I didn't sign up for. How could they do this to me? How could they steal my identity and destroy everything I've worked for? Sophie sighed. They thought you wouldn't notice. They thought they could get away with it because you were the successful one in the family. But now we're going to stop them. The days following my discovery were a blur of phone calls, emails, and paperwork. Sophie and I spent hours poring over every document, trying to piece together the extent of my family's betrayal. I was in shock, but I couldn't afford to remain in denial. There was too much at stake now. Sophie had already helped me freeze my credit and file the necessary reports, but I knew this battle wasn't going to be won in a courtroom alone. I needed answers. I needed to confront my family. The hardest part, however, was the inevitable confrontation with James. I hadn't seen him in over a month, since he moved into his new house, but we still kept in touch occasionally. I hadn't noticed anything off. He was always so charismatic, so convincing when he talked about the future and how successful his new life was. But now, as I stared at the pile of documents detailing everything from the forged loan applications to credit card charges, I couldn't shake the feeling that something far deeper and more sinister was going on. Sophie gave me a knowing look as she reviewed the list of charges on my new credit report. You know what this means, right? It's not just your mom and dad anymore. James knew what was happening, and he was using your identity to live a life he couldn't afford. I know, I whispered, my voice barely audible. But why? Why didn't he come to me for help? Why didn't he just ask? Sophie shook her head. Lily, that's the question we all want the answer to. But I'm willing to bet it's not about money. There's something much deeper going on. I couldn't wait any longer. The guilt had been eating at me for days, the need to understand what my family had done and why they had been using me as some kind of financial lifeline. I scheduled a dinner with my parents and James at a local restaurant, a neutral place where I could keep my emotions in check. I needed answers, and I would get them, even if it meant tearing apart the very family I had once believed in. When I arrived at the restaurant, my parents were already seated at the corner booth, their faces drawn and tense. James was late as usual, strolling in with that same confident smile that had always masked his real intentions. Lily, darling. My mother greeted me with forced cheer, her voice too bright to be convincing. I'm so glad you could make it. Let's eat and talk, okay? Sure, Mom, I replied flatly, trying to keep my tone neutral. We need to talk about something important. James slid into the booth beside me, flashing his usual winning smile. But this time, I could see the unease in his eyes. Something was off. Before anyone could say anything else, I placed a stack of documents on the table in front of them. Do you recognize these? I asked, staring directly at my mother and father. These are just some of the loans you've taken out in my name without my permission. There's also this mortgage that James apparently needed help with. I turned to him. Care to explain? James shifted uncomfortably in his seat. His usual arrogance was gone, replaced by something far more unsettling, fear. He opened his mouth to say something, but my father cut him off. Lily, sweetheart, please, let's just eat. We'll explain everything once we've had dinner, my father said, his voice tight. I shook my head, standing up from the table. No, I'm not sitting down and pretending everything is fine. You've been stealing from me, forging my signature, and getting yourself deeper into debt using my name. And now, I'm here to tell you, I'm not going to cover for you anymore. The silence that followed was suffocating. My parents exchanged quick, uneasy glances, and for the first time in years, I could see that the facade they'd built was crumbling. James, however, didn't seem so easily rattled. He leaned back in his seat, as if trying to maintain control over the situation. Lily, you don't understand. This was all for the family, James said, his voice calm but laced with tension. Mom and Dad were just trying to help me out. I couldn't have gotten the house without their help. I could feel the anger boiling up inside me, but I held it in check. No, James. They weren't trying to help you. They were using me, and you knew it. You knew it when you asked them to forge my signature on those papers. His eyes flickered with something guilt, defensiveness, but it was too late for excuses. You've been taking advantage of me for years, haven't you? I continued, my voice shaking. All those times you called me, asking for help, acting like you were struggling when you knew you were just spending money recklessly, all while using my name to clean up your mess. James remained quiet, his fingers drumming lightly on the table. Lily, he said, his voice suddenly low and almost pleading. You don't know what it's like. I was in over my head, and I needed help. I never wanted you to find out like this. You should have been honest with me, I said, my voice cold. Instead, you took advantage of me and now I'm stuck cleaning up the mess. I turned to my mother and father. And you didn't stop him. You didn't even try to warn me. Instead, you were right there, helping him hide the truth. My mother, her face pale, finally spoke. Lily, please, we were just trying to make sure James didn't fall apart. He's your brother. We didn't want to see him fail. Fail? I echoed. Fail? No one's going to fail here except for you, if you don't take responsibility for what you've done. The money's one thing, but you've destroyed my trust in you. All of you. I stood up abruptly, ready to walk out, but Sophie's voice interrupted me. She had entered the restaurant unnoticed, and was now standing just behind me. Lily's right, she said, her tone firm. You've crossed a line that can't be undone. It's time to face the consequences. For the first time, I saw my father's eyes flicker with something other than defensiveness. It was guilt. Deep, painful guilt. The next few weeks were a whirlwind of legal meetings, phone calls, and paperwork. Sophie had helped me file formal complaints and press charges for identity theft and fraud against my parents and James. The severity of what they had done was finally sinking in for them, and there was no way to cover up the damage anymore. James had been forced to sell the house he could no longer afford, and the bank was working with me to clear my name from the fraudulently opened accounts. But the emotional toll of everything was far heavier than I had anticipated. One evening, my father called me, his voice soft, almost broken. Lily, I know you're angry, and you have every right to be. I just want you to know that I'm sorry. I failed you as a parent. I should have protected you, not dragged you into our mess. I wanted to say something, to let him know how much this had hurt, but I couldn't find the words. It wasn't just about the money anymore. It was about everything I thought I knew about my family, all of it shattered by their actions. I didn't know if I could ever forgive them. I need time, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. I'm not sure if I can forgive you. In the months that followed, I rebuilt my life from the ground up. I worked with a financial advisor to clear the debts that weren't mine, and I slowly regained my credit. It wasn't easy, and there were nights when I felt like I would never fully recover from the betrayal. But with Sophie by my side, I took each day one step at a time. My family never fully understood the extent of what they had done. They tried, in their own way, to make amends, but nothing would ever be the same. Trust was something that could not be easily repaired. As for James, I hadn't spoken to him since the confrontation. He tried reaching out a few times, but I couldn't bring myself to talk to him. He had crossed a line that, for me, was too far to return from. I learned the hard way that sometimes the people we love the most are the ones who can hurt us the deepest. And while forgiveness may come one day, for now, I was focused on healing and rebuilding the life that had almost been taken from me. But I also learned something important in all of this, that no matter how deeply someone betrays you, you have the power to rise above it. And that power, in the end, was my greatest asset.